Hey class, Mr. Graziano here. I'm going to do an assignment. It's just basically a geometric cup, and I'm going to go through it in just a second. It's a beautiful day. It's September 24th, 2020, and man, just take a look at, I'm outside right now. It's an awesome day. Anyhow, let's go on. We're going to get going here. So here we go, we're going to do this cup. And it doesn't have to be the same size, but you can't trace it. It's got to be freehand. So what I'm going to be doing here is this. I like to take my number 2 pencil and just sort of sketch. So I'm going to do it's a basic cylinder with sides that are angling in. Now, if the proportions aren't exactly the same, that's okay. My cup to right now looks a little bit narrower than that cup, and that's fine, okay? So just really lightly, can you see that okay? Let's zoom in here a little bit. So I'm going to draw just a little darker so you can see it. But you're going to draw really light. Now this cup here, if you take a look at this picture, this cup doesn't have, it's got a dark ridge, but here the ridge disappears and it's followed on light on either side. But in order to make that white, remember, you're going to have gray on either side of that. So I'm just going to put this basic thing down. Here is the water that's inside the cup right here. That's another ellipse right in that area, so we'll draw that. And then I've got, like a line up here. So up here, and I'm gonna go back to my ebony pencil. So up here you can see that line is fairly thick. Okay, and it starts thick, but then it disappears to almost nothing. So it's a thickened line up here that disappears to more of a gray line here. Gets sort of thick and black in this area, and then disappears to almost nothing. So don't draw a line all the way across if there isn't one. Now, the value in back, this is a gray back here, so I'm gonna put some gray back in here, and I'm gonna leave a white space where the ridge of that cup is. You can just see there is a white line right here, and I'm gonna leave that white space. So I'm gonna leave a space here. I'll put it next here. So I'm gonna leave a space here where that white is. So I'll leave a little space right there. And then I'm going to put my gray in here. The gray is very light. Now remember, if you give these grays numbers, if you give these values numbers, you could say that perhaps this number here for like this gray is maybe a 5 at the most. And these other grays are really light. So sometimes I'll change the grip of my pencil. I won't hold the pencil so close to the tip. I'll hold it a little further back. So I get a more gentle light gray. And I like to, and since there are these little swirls here, if I'm going to do any strokes, I kind of want them to follow those swirls. Just a little bit. So I'm going to lay those down. Now, don't think like I'm drawing water. Just look at the shapes. So I can see right here there's some definite white areas. Actually, I think this cup needs to be opened just a little more. So I'm going to go like this, just a little bit of a wider oval. And then there's some areas that are gray in here. And there's some areas that are left white. Now, if I really want this lip to stand out, this line, it fades from a thick line to a very thin, and it's surrounded by white on either side. Now, if I want to make that white pop out a little bit more, then what I'll do is right up here, I might make it just a little darker near the edge of that glass. And now you can see that white line better. And I might do the same thing on this side. I'll make it just a little darker near that white edge, okay? Now, the sides of the glass, if you can see here, the side of the glass starts out as a gray. There's not a line here, it's an edge, just gray, and then it sort of fades to white. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with my gray here, right on the edge. So you got a line there, bring it right up to the edge, and then I'm gonna start to fade that in. So just real gentle strokes. The edge gets darker, and then it fades in as it comes. Okay, and it looks like it's doing the same thing on the other side. Dark along the edge, and it's going to start to fade as it comes in the middle. Now I'm starting to push a little too hard, so I'm moving my pencil back right now so that I'm not holding it so close to the tip of the pencil. And it's kind of fading in here. Okay, now notice the top rim of the glass. It's not solid white. Same thing happens here. It's kind of gray, and then it sort of fades to white. So once again, if I do any strokes, I'm going to follow the curves of the glass. That way my glass is going to look a little rounder. Okay? Now you're going to hear me say this a lot. You want any kind of strokes to follow the contours of your subject. Okay? So for example, if I drew a circle like this, and I drew a circle like this, and in this circle, I put lines like this, and in this circle, I put lines like this. This one looks like a globe. It looks three-dimensional. This looks like an Eggo waffle. It looks flat. So I want to make sure if any lines here are kind of following the curves of that glass, okay, which will make this look a little rounder. Okay, so there's my glass. Looks like it gets pretty dark up here. Or I shouldn't say dark. There's a lot of gray. But now in my gray, I can't really see. Look at here. There's a difference between here and here. Now on mine, it looks like the same thing. So I need to darken this back here, this gray, just a little bit more so I can see it compared to that. And then I'm going to leave that little white edge there again. So a little bit more. And then here, there's some gray up in here. And that fades in as it's coming. But once now, I just lost the surface of my water again. So I'm going to take that little edge here and make this just a little darker so I can see the difference between that edge of the water and the gray in the other spot. Now notice up here, there's some strokes, these little strokes, little textures. So I might put that little texture in there, just a little bit of texture. And then the same thing here, a little bit of texture. And I've got some strokes going this way, okay? Now, notice the surface of the water here is actually white. So probably what I should do is just leave that white, and then this surface looks gray. It's like a gray edge right here, and it kind of fades into this area. Okay, and this surface is kind of gray here. It fades into this area. Okay, looking a little better. All right, now don't go nuts with the bubbles. The bubbles are just tiny little gray spots, and I'll put those in last. I think I'm gonna do everything else but those bubbles. Now on the bottom of the glass, this glass actually has a little more of a rounded bottom than I drew. And in the bottom, you might say, how am I gonna show this reflective glass? Well, don't think of it as reflective glass. Just think of it as little shapes. You know, I'm gonna draw those shapes. Now you don't have to have them perfect. So I'm gonna start drawing this sort of dark little shape here. It looks like kind of a swirl. And then up in here, it's sort of dark. It's a dark line in there, and it kind of swirls into the bottom. Little dark markings in here. Now, are my markings exactly like that? No, but they're close. So kind of put those markings in. Some of them are kind of gray. Once again, I've got like a gray band coming in here. It's a little gray. So I'm gonna make that gray. And that fades. And then I've got some streaks coming in here. Streaks coming in there. You see those? And then up in here, got some dark areas. So do your best kind of mimicking those shapes that you're seeing. I'm gonna fold the paper so you can see it a little bit better. So mimicking those little shapes that I'm seeing. See this little shape here? I kind of did that here. And there's a little line in there, and there's some texture. Okay, and then this gets a little thicker over here. Swirls up into the edge. Okay, the edge of my glass is defined not with a line, just an edge that fades. And now there's kind of a light fading in here going on. Okay, get the idea? I could keep doing the whole thing, but I think you get the idea. So what I want you to do now for this assignment is let's get this done, and this is going to be due on the next class, which would be Monday. So get it in by Monday. Okay, take a picture of it, put it in Google Classroom or Google Slides, which is attached to your Google Classroom. And if it's not, I will do that. And then the bubbles, we've got these little sort of gray little dots that are bubbling up in here. So I'll put those in. Got the idea? So you're gonna draw this glass here. Notice mine wasn't the same size, which is fine. I don't care so much about the proportions being perfect. Now notice here I can barely even make out an edge. Don't draw one. So here there's barely an edge here. Got it? So that's your assignment.